The time compass. The Byzantine Empire, Part 1. In another episode of The Time Compass, we learned that all roads lead to Rome. Well, there was another important city which a lot of those roads passed through to get to Rome: Constantinople.
But what made this city so special?
Well, I'll tell you, Pipo. You see, the world had changed a lot by the 4th century AD. It was not enough to conquer, plunder, and dominate territories to maintain power and wealth. Now there was another way to create riches: by trading goods with the Far East. People on one side of the world were willing to pay lots of money for the things being produced on the other side. The people of Constantinople acted as go-betweens, trading goods and money back and forth. They worked hard trading, and they themselves became prosperous. Distances from one side of the world to the other were immense, and traveling at that time was very dangerous. There weren't a lot of trade routes between East and West. This meant that all the trade routes passed through Constantinople. And so, this one city became a giant funnel where all the goods from the East were gathered to be distributed to the West. So much money was passing through Constantinople that it formed a new base of power for the Roman Empire. Not power from armies, but the power of money. Constantinople, the new Rome. The magnificent city of Constantinople was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Because it was located right between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, Constantinople became a natural gateway, linking the West with the East.
But who was living in Constantinople? How did the powerful Byzantine Empire begin? Find out on today's episode of Truth or History.
Well, to begin, we need to go back to ancient Rome. In the year 306, a man named Constantine became emperor of the legendary Roman Empire. Constantine lived through some complicated and turbulent times. On the one hand, Germanic peoples were conquering everything in their paths and heading straight towards Rome. On the other hand, there were a growing number of Roman citizens who were converting to Christianity. These Christians wanted relief from repression and violence. Constantine decided the best thing to do was to move the capital of the empire to a safer place. So he founded the New Rome. Although after his death, the city became known as Constantinople in his honor.
I get it! Constantinople!
Yes, Pipo.
I'm a genius!
Constantine did something else pretty important. He was the first Roman emperor to adopt the Christian religion. This meant that a great many Romans were able to freely practice Christianity without fearing persecution or imprisonment. But, of course, the proud Romans who were still living in Rome were, let's say, not very happy with all these decisions. I don't agree with all the things Constantine has done. First, how can you have a Roman Empire that isn't ruled from Rome? Secondly, what happens to us still in Rome? Faced with so much discontent, in the year 395, a successor to Constantine, the Emperor Theodosius, split the empire in two upon his death. Theodosius was the last emperor to rule both the eastern part, with its capital in Constantinople, and the western part, with its capital in ancient Rome. His two sons were the heirs to these two parts.
But the days of the Western Roman Empire were numbered, and nothing could stop its inevitable end.
In the year 476, the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire, Romulus Augustus, was deposed by Odoacer, a Germanic general. Piece by piece, the Roman Empire, which had lasted for so many centuries, began to fall away. the Great Byzantine Empire. But the Roman Empire wasn't completely destroyed. The Eastern Roman Empire, centered in Constantinople, continued to flourish. Eventually, it transformed into what we call the Byzantine Empire, and it lasted over 1,000 years. In the year 527 AD, the empire had its first great emperor, Justinian the Great. Justinian did a lot of work, and his reign lasted 38 years. That's a long time. Justinian used the vast amounts of money that were coming in and ordered the building of a great many works. First, he built the most important war fleet throughout the Mediterranean, and with it, he protected trade ships from pirates. He also conquered great swaths of territory, including Italy and parts of Spain, Africa, and Egypt. It was such an extensive territory, with such diverse cultures and religions, that it was difficult to keep everything unified. Justinian decided to unite the empire with religion. And so he told all the inhabitants of his empire to adopt Christianity as the only religion. Christianity was spread far and wide throughout the empire. He also ordered the building of a great many churches. Nobody could have had any doubts about where to go in order to pray. Two churches. Emperor Justinian wanted the best church to be in Constantinople. He decided to build a masterpiece, the Hagia Sophia, a building that was a miracle of architecture. Its cupola measures roughly 31 meters in diameter and 55 meters high. And the way that the cupola is supported makes it seem as if it is floating in air. The church was a symbol of the unity and strength of the empire under Christianity. But outside Justinian's empire, back in Rome, there lived the head of the Christian church, called the Pope. And he had authority over the entire Christian world. The popes of the time did not like that Justinian was gaining influence over Christians.
But hey, wait a minute. Weren't they all Christians?
Yes, Pipo, they were all Christians. But the popes of Rome had certain beliefs of how Christianity should be practiced. This included everything from how to teach the Bible to what language people should pray in. And in the Byzantine Empire, they had different ideas about how to practice Christianity, which they saw also as correct. This arguing over the two different approaches eventually led Christianity to split into two factions. In the West, what would become the Roman Catholic Church, led from Rome, and in the East, what would become the Eastern Orthodox Church, led from Constantinople. Let's dig a little deeper with our time compass and find out a little about the history of money. Around 600 BC, the Lydians, settled in what is now Turkey, minted the first coins with images on their sides that we know of. Around the 5th century BC, the Persian king Darius realized the importance of coins and ordered the minting of coins throughout his empire. Around 335 BC, Alexander the Great spread the use of metal coins as his empire grew. Many of them featured images of Alexander himself. In the year 476, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, with no standard system, the use of money partially stopped, and people had to go back to bartering. 1,000 years AD, the exchange of goods with the East began to flow once again. In 1407, one of the very first modern banks was founded in Genoa, Italy. Its name was the Bank of St. George. During the Renaissance, because the public began using money to pay off debts and make other payments, modern banks were born and have lasted right up till the present day. Coming up in the next episode, the Byzantine Empire, Part 2. For over 1,000 years, Byzantium was the point that united trade between Europe and the East. It was the bridge that linked Europe to the enormous wealth of very distant countries, and people were dying because of diseases that spread through the capital. And to cap it all off, during the 8th and 9th centuries, many civil wars shook the foundations of the empire. The Turks finally arrived in front of the gates of Constantinople in April of 1453. The Turkish Sultan Mehmed II set up his tent in front of the gates and declared he wasn't leaving till he entered the city.